Hey naughty knitters, so I had a request from someone to show how I started the knitted dragon tail, and I was planning on reknitting it anyway to hopefully cut down the weight, because over time it has stretched a bit. It just grazes the ground when I wear it, so why not? So I have my scales. Again, these are from theringlord.com. This is the large aluminum scale. Again, I believe this was the champagne color, but don't quote me on that. It's been a few years, and this is just my leftovers. I'm using size 9 needles. I'm going to make it a little tighter this time, because when you look at the knitted part, you can see through it a little bit. You can see the stuffing. And I'm using the Mainstays cheapest yarn you can get. It's like the Walmart brand of Red Heart. It'll work. I'm going to use that doubled over. So I'm working from both ends of the skein at the same time. So the start's pretty easy. I'm going to make a slip knot. And I'm going to cast on 2 more stitches for a total of 3. Okay. So that's the start. Now, if you've ever made an I-cord, you'll know what I'm doing. If not, this is going to seem a little weird. I'm going to take another needle. I'm going to take these 3 stitches and slide them to the other end of the needle. Take my working yarn, go around the back, and I'm actually going to start on this first stitch. So that working yarn that's on this stitch is going to start over here. When you only have a small amount of stitches, you can do that. So I'm going to knit, and knit again. Okay, and I'm going to tighten this up a little bit. And this is just a me thing. I like to do this, take my tail and like pull it up so that when I do my I-cord, my tail is already tucked in and I don't have to worry about trying to weave it in later. Okay, so my stitches were over here. I'm going to slide them over again. Now I'm going to add 3 scales on my stitches. Okay, so pick up a scale. I can't do this with these nails. Pick up a scale, knit the stitch. I did that backwards. No, I didn't. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done this. Slide the scale off. Okay. Pick up another scale. Okay. Knit the stitch. Slide the scale off. Pick up the scale this way. Knit the stitch, slide the scale off. All right, so there's your first row. Remember to tuck my tail up. If you don't want to tuck the tail up, that's fine. You can just fight with weaving it in later. Slide my stitches over. Now this is going to be an increase row and a spacer row all at once. So I'm going to knit 2 stitches into the one. You can do this however you like. Okay. And from this point, you're probably going to start needing more needles because it's kind of hard to do more than 3 or 4 stitches on an I-cord. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another needle. Okay. All right, so now I've got 6 stitches total, and we're still early on in the tail, so I'm going to go ahead and put a scale on every stitch. Grab a few scales. Some of these are dirty. I don't know how. They've been in a bag. Anyway. Okay. This looks kind of tough, but I'm working very tight. Oh, don't do that if you can help it. Ooh, okay, grab my scale first. That would be helpful. If you forget to grab your scale first, you can go back to my other video to see the crochet hook method and put it on after you've knit the stitches. Come on. Come back here to my last 2 stitches of my 6. I guess if you're working with double points, if you forget the scale, you can always slip it on from the other side. Just thought of that. Alright, so there's my next scale row. Next row is a spacer row and increase. But this time we're just going to add 3 stitches instead of doubling, because you're just going to add 3 stitches every time we do a spacer row. So I am going to do the first one just because I feel like it. And then knit that one plain. Knit an increase. Knit plain. Knit increase. Knit plain. So if you doubled every row, you'd have something more hat shaped, and we're not looking for a hat. We're looking for a long conical tube. Okay, so now we're going to start doing scales on every other stitch to space them out a little bit. Oh. Just going to try to do this. There we go. All right. So there's one, and then I'm going to knit the next stitch plain, and then I'm going to put a scale on, knit the next one plain with no scale. Put it on a scale. Ouch. Knit the next one plain. Okay, now this is where I'm going to start doing something different than the last tail, is I'm actually going to start leaving an underbelly unknit, try and cut down the weight, so I'm going to knit those last 2 totally plain. Okay, so I need another increase slash spacer row. So this is again where I'm going to do something a little different. I'm just going to knit across my scales and do my 2 plain underbelly stitches as increases. because if you've ever seen a dragon's underbelly, it's not covered in scales. And hopefully it would cut some weight down too, because that tail is very heavy. It's very cool, but it's very heavy. Okay, there I'm going to make my increase, and there I'm going to make an increase. Alright, I am going to move some stitches around, add another needle in here. Whoops. Alright, so I'm going to put all my scale stitches on needles, and all my underbelly stitches I'll be on a needle. That's close enough. So I've got 4 here, 3 here, and 4 here. All right. So I've done my spacer row. Come back, there's my working yarn, there's my tail. I'm going to actually take my tail and I'm going to tuck him in here so I don't want to fight him anymore. Gone. Ta-da, he's gone. I don't have to weave him in either. Okay, so I've done my spacer row. I'm ready to do more scales. So as you can hopefully see, black yarn I know is hard to see. This stitch has a scale, this stitch is plain, this stitch has a scale. So for the next row, this one will be plain, this one will get a scale, this one will be plain, scale. So you're alternating every other column for every other scale row. Okay. So this one is plain, and then this one gets a scale. Come here, you. I have all these extra needles in my hand. I need that needle. So that one's plain. That one is not. Gets a scale. And that one goes plain. And then my underbelly stitches are just going to knit plain all the way across. Okay. So now I'm doing a spacer row. And again, I'm going to knit all of my scale rows plain and do an increase on my underbelly rows. I'm just going to increase 2 when I get there, because these are my scale rows. Okay, now my underbelly, I'm going to do 1 increase on each side. So now I'm going to do another scale row. Again, alternating columns. Who gets scales and quintessence. So scale, plain, scale, plain. Hi, Vinny. I don't know if you heard that. That was my cat. Probably heard that one. She's waiting for breakfast. But it's not breakfast time yet. Oh, there's my camera bump. I think I actually bumped it earlier too. I try not to bump the camera, but my setup is really kind of, I've got my phone set on whatever I can find. Get off of there. There we go. And I'm going to knit across my underbelly row, but I'm going to start moving some underbelly stitches over. Okay. I just moved one stitch over. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to knit this guy, and then I'm going to move him over to my scale rows. So I've just passed him back over, and I'm going to move him over here. He's already knit, so I don't have to knit him, so I can just do my spacer row. If you've not worked with double points, I prefer it to circular needles, but if you're one of those people who can do very tiny things with the magic loop or whatever it is, go for it. Not one to tell you how to do things. But there's nothing saying you must do this on double points. I just think it's easier. Okay, so this is be my increases again. So I'm going to do 2 increases right here. One on each end of the underbelly. Oh, I'm going to hit the camera. It's the stuff my camera is balanced on, rather. Another increase. Okay, I'm going to start my scale row. And you're going to see that stitch that I added during the last time I moved stitches around is now going to be a scale stitch. So we're going to grab some more scales. I hear you, Vinny. I'm going to slide this dang thing off. Okay, plain. Right now. Okay, so now my scale row has gotten a little bit bigger. Do my underbelly stitches. That's what I'm going to call them, my underbelly. Now, spacer row, which I think I am not going to do increases on this row because I want a long skinny tail. So I'm just going to do a plain spacer row. Not much to look at here. If you want to use a stitch marker to remind you where the start of your row is, again, have at it. Since I'm using double points and I've got my underbelly stitches, I know where the end of my row is. Again, I'm not one to tell you what you should and should not do. If it works, do it. Okay, so done my spacer row, and you can start to see we've got a little bit of a tail happening. Not much of a tail because this is just the stubby end. But I'd do another scale row. Probably work for a little bit without increases. And then I'll probably give it that much before I start doing another increase. Do increases very slowly as you go, because you don't want a chub of a tail, unless that's what you're going for. Go for it. But I think, as I said before, I'm totally just winging this as I go. Kind of decide to do an increase when it starts looking a little more tube, because we definitely want a smooth cone shape, but don't do very many, because again, you don't want a hat shape either. We want a tapering cone, a long skinny cone. I put that on there backwards, I think. No, I did not. Ooh, slide over. Get them camera bumps in. It's like I've got a quota for every so many minutes of video. Go to bump a camera. Okay. See, I'm going to try to keep my underbelly stitches slightly less than half of my scale stitches. Again, totally just winging this. Don't forget to do your spacer rows, because you do want your scales spaced out a little bit. But if you don't want your scale spaced out, I guess you wouldn't have to do a spacer row. But it's kind of awkward trying to do increases on scale rows. So I've just realized that it's been a while since I've made a video. I've gotten a new phone since then. And this phone is like tracking my movement. It's a little weird. Don't know if that's going to make it hard to watch or not, because it seems like it's very jumpy. So let me know if that's bad or hard to watch, and I'll figure out how to turn that off. I mean, it's nice. It's going to keep my hands in the picture while I'm watching my hands and not the video I'm filming. But it does seem very jumpy in the few times I've looked up at it. Come on. And again, if you forget where you are on putting scales on places, if there was a scale in the previous column, it doesn't get one this time. There was no scale in the previous column. It gets one this time. I did another video where I go more slowly on doing the scales. This isn't a how to do scales video. This is a how to start the tail video. All right, my underbelly. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I think you've got the gist of how this works. There I've got a couple inches of tail. Look at it. Kind of looks like a pine cone right now. But once it's, you know, much longer, it'll look less pine cone and more dragon tail. So there you go, naughty knitters. Again, these scales are from theringlord.com. This is the large aluminum scale. If you're going to not do an underbelly, the other tail that I did that was scales all the way around was, I believe, around 500 scales. This one I'm going to hope to use a little less because I'm leaving part of it unscaled. Yeah. Have fun with your naughty knitting.